Hello, my name is Phill Jenkins. I'm with IBM Accessibility, part of the IBM Research Division. I'm a senior engineer and want to talk to you today about accessibility in the human experience. One of the questions that I ask myself every day is how can we impact society and the human experience? Is there ways to create new ways of interacting with technology? Is there new insights that we can gather to help solve the very large, important societal problems? I work across many of IBM's research teams around the world. I live in Austin, Texas, and you folks are in Zurich, where we have a lab. There are over 6 Nobel laureates in IBM, 9 medals of technology, 6 Turing awards, and we have 28 ACM fellows and about 95 IBM fellows that work in research. Within research is the IBM Accessibility team. You met Frances West, our Chief Accessibility Officer. Within her team are a number of different functions. I used to be part of the Policy and Standards Group. I worked in the Obama administration in the U.S. Access Board. It was an appointed position. Spent 7 years there working on the Americans with Disabilities Act, Section 508 standards, voting standards, lots of different accessibility standards for the U.S. federal government. Also have experience working with the internal Center of Competency, our accessibility consulting team that works with our product divisions and our internal employee-facing projects. Now I work in the business development team and work with a lot of clients around the world in the banking, insurance, education, healthcare, different industries across the globe. The accessibility story in IBM is one worth telling. There's about a 100-year experience that's behind it. We started back in 1914 with our first employee who had a disability, a blind scientist. We worked on things like speech recognition in the 1964 World's Fair, Braille printers in the 70s. We even developed the talking typewriter, and the first IBM product for the blind was called IBM Screen Reader for DOS. It's the Kleenex of tissue, if you will. One of the products that came out in 1998 was a thing called a Homepage Reader. It was the first talking web browser for the blind. Today, you're seeing things like mobile accessibility checker. We have location-based services, lots of innovative technology with the advent of mobile and with media and things like IBM Watson. Okay. Now, traditionally, we've looked at the 4 definitions of disabilities. That's still the case. There's nothing new here. Accessibility has traditionally been about giving everyone an alternative to the stairs. It's not good enough to give someone a wheelchair. You also have to remove the stairs, give them the accessible path, the elevator, the alternatives to the stairs, the ramps, the right height and the right width. So just as a building has to be designed and to comply with accessibility standards for wheelchair users, so do websites. They have to be designed and coded to be accessible. It's not good enough to give a user a screen reader like JAWS or Homepage Reader from IBM and expect it to work with any and all websites. Those websites have a responsibility to remove the barriers, to remove the stairs to their information technology. With the advent of mobile, now everyone can be in a situation and experience an accessibility barrier. For example, if it's too bright outside, you can't see the screen. If it's too noisy, you can't hear the audio, so you need the captions turned on. If the road is bumpy, you can't text, so you want to use voice recognition. But if you're in a public place where you can't use voice, you want to privately use text. The person may be able to switch. Now, a person with a disability may not be able to switch, but fundamentally those technologies need to be built in. That accessibility needs to be built into the mobile app. As our eyes get older and as we're busy doing our daily tasks, we're also experiencing situational disabilities, these barriers that people with disabilities also experience. So the point is now it's ubiquitous. Now everyone experiences these issues, and so everyone can benefit, and all of us need to work on accessibility, not just for people with disabilities, primarily and foundationally for them, but also to benefit everyone else. When we look at aging and the demographics coming on board, IBM's always looking at the latest perspective and needs, proactively assisting our clients and looking at the trends. We're looking at doubling the population of people who are over 65 in the next 20 years. Japan, Italy, Germany, they're the countries that are going to see the most significant growth. And so what we're going to need to do is rethink or outthink the aging and ability phenomena. And what you can do is go to ageandability.com and look at IBM's latest thinking there to influence your strategies and your business cases. Now, the other advent with not just mobile and aging is this new accelerated development process. Now we're going from, when I worked on software originally, it took a year or two to get something out the door. Then we went to Agile within weeks. Now we're into a continuous delivery where developers are uploading fixes constantly. If you're in this kind of a cycle, you need accessibility built into your design, in your development tools, into your prototype tools, so that accessibility is not tested in at the end of the cycle. It has to be designed in and built in from the front. So I need to take you through some of the tools we have now and some of the design thinking. So let's look at design thinking first. So Ginny Rometty, our CEO, says that the biggest driver of sustained growth is the client experience. So if the client experience now includes everyone, aging, mobile users, people with disabilities, mainstream users, user experience is key. The last best experience has now become the minimum experience that we want everywhere. So as soon as you experience something innovative, something better, something compelling, something that wows you, that's now your new minimum bar that you're expecting everywhere to be. So we need to start thinking about accessibility, inclusive design, and early in the process. There's a video here that we published last year that talks about how we do that within IBM, and it's addressed mostly to designers, so I recommend it highly. In the video, one of the principal designers, Denise Burton, talks about, if design is responsible for the user experience, then we need to understand what it really means to make something accessible. So let me take you through what I think it really means to make something accessible. First of all, we have to have a framework. It's called IBM Design Thinking. This is published out on the web. It's built off of some other industry things. We've been using this inside IBM for several years now. It's changed the way we work. It's changed our people, our culture. It includes accessibility. It lets us observe to get to know people and understand their needs. It reflects on those understandings and lets us make and explore, prototype, and come to a product that actually wows the user and is inclusive. With that framework is the design language. In that design language are examples of accessibility fundamentals such as contrast. There's a color palette within the IBM design language that uses the full spectrum and shows the accessible black on white, or the other end where you have white on black, and then the different color palettes in between. And that's available from the link on the slide, IBM design language. Now, fundamental to that design language is the building the empathy for the end user. On the right here, you see one of our designers putting on a set of goggles that help him simulate the vision disability that's, in this case, I think it's cataracts. But one thing we keep asking ourselves as we go through this design process is to ask ourselves, what is the user thinking? What are they feeling? What are they saying? What are they doing? In one of the workshops, as we develop the design and prototype for the user, the design team is constantly asking themselves those questions. What are they thinking when they're using that device in the taxi cab and it's too bumpy and they can't text? What are they saying to themselves? What are they feeling? What do they wish they had that would work? One of the design camps that we did came up with this beautiful logo. It's the IBM Rebus where you have the eyeball, the bumblebee, and the letter M, just like what's on my T-shirt. However, this was put into a style as a colorblind chart. I have 3 boys. All 3 boys are colorblind. 1 in 10 males are colorblind. But this is a very recognizable kind of a motif or logo here. But what we can do now is simulate what a person with a colorblind would actually see. And if I turn this into a grayscale, you can quickly see how the bumblebee almost disappears from the diagram. Now, to get into more real-world examples, we take an example here where we have a structure diagram from a financial accounts, and each one of these different lines have a different color, and only with the color are you able to tell which type of account it is. So on the right, we've simulated the colorblind issue, or if you were to print this in black and white, you would see that the colors basically disappear, and there's no way to tell the account types by color alone. So it's an incorrect example of using color alone. So we went through the design process. Now we have a resource that we take the designers through in our design camp. We show them that if we add some annotations and text in the same color as the color lines, then whether it's in color or whether it's in black and white, we're able to tell the difference between the single location sweep accounts or the cross-border sweep accounts, the different types of accounts. All right. Now, that's a colorblind example and use of color. What if we wanted to understand how to navigate this structure with the keyboard? Now, this is pretty complex. How would you go between structures? How would you go within a structure? How would you expand or collapse the different subparts to the structure, or perhaps open an account or close the account? What about a context menu, right mouse click? How would you do that with a keyboard? So we ask ourselves these questions and build an interactive user experience with the keyboard. So here's where we're identifying the tab key as the way to navigate between the structures. We're using the arrow keys, the up and down, left, right arrow keys to go within and between the structure, and then use the enter key to open and close or expand, collapse, and the shift F10 would do the right mouse click. So again, a resource for our designers and a way to explain how to design it, what it really means to make it accessible. With the advent of mobile and now responsive layouts, you have the desktop view, which becomes a narrower tablet view, which becomes a phone view. Now, if you take that concept and apply it to something like a complex grid, you end up with a nice table that's accessible on the desktop. So you have the column headings and the row headings and the data, and you're able to take that information and create what's called the card view, perhaps wider, where you have the same headings and the same row and column information built into the card, and then be able to make that more narrow and create a phone view that lets you do the same kind of content that's responsive as well as accessible. One of the tools we're going to need now is the designers are going to need the tools. You're going to not just have the training and the concepts, but tooling to help you be more productive and to make sure the computer is doing more of the work if it can. So this is an example of a tool that shows the reading order. There's instructions on how to use the tool, but over on the right is the result. It draws the reading order on the page. So you don't have to try to train a sighted designer on how to use a screen reader. What we're doing is creating a very visual tool that's showing the reading order so they can be more productive in understanding, is it supposed to go down here and next, or is it supposed to go across and down? And this reading order tool visually shows that so they can be more productive. Built into that same tool is a contrast analyzer. So this will take a look at all of the text on the page, find all of the background, foreground colors, actually show you where it is in the source code if you're a front-end prototype developer, and then give you a list of all of the examples that pass and fail on that page. So again, an automated, more productive tool to do contrast analysis. Also built into our training are things like activities where we understand how VoiceOver on the iPad works and how the fonts and the different features that are built into the Apple devices can be used, and then to develop that empathy and understanding of what the user's doing when they're using your application. All of those activities, those tools, those workshops are put together in a design thinking accessibility workshop where we take the team through several days, and this is customized to the role of the designers, whether they're a researcher, a user researcher, whether they're an information architect that would be more responsible for the layout and the labels, or whether they're a user experience designer that's responsible for how the keyboard interaction might work, or whether they're a front-end developer or even a visual designer that's concerned with contrast and layout. So all of those things come together, and the team always asks me, well, how do you know when you're done, Phill? Well, one way to know is that whether you comply or conform with those 38 success criteria. So we've talked about design thinking. Now let's talk real quick about tooling, and then we'll talk about organization. So in tooling, we want to make sure that we speed up development and improve the user experience. We can do that with automated content checkers. We can do it with mobile native app checkers, or we can integrate accessibility early in the process so that the prototype developer, the unit test time, and at development integration time, that accessibility is being checked early in the process. We're not waiting for the test team to test in accessibility. It doesn't work. You all know that. So now we have integration tools that, in this case, there's an implementation that works with Selenium. It's a functional test regression tool that can be where you can add accessibility directly into the scripts. Now, one of the benefits of this automated accessibility tester is that it lets you find occurrences and ignore them. So not only can you turn rules on and off, can you write custom rules, now you're able to turn off the noise, to turn off the false positives, to temporarily ignore some issues so you can continue the integration and development process. These testing tools now also need to be, or are being integrated into mainstream tools like IBM TLeaf. So TLeaf is a user experience tool. We've added the accessibility overlays, so as you're looking at the hotspots, as you're looking at the user path of travel through the website or through the web application, in this case an e-commerce site, you're able to not only see where they're spending their time, what they're doing, but you can add the accessibility overlays and understand where the contrast issues are, and is that contributing to the problem? Is there missing alt text, or is the label, is the tabbing order and the keyboard navigation a problem? And this tool now gives you that information in context of the overall user experience for all users. We're able to take advantage of some of the newer technologies with the media caption editor by using IBM Watson speech recognition, human language understanding, and create better quality captions directly from speech recognition, built in a browser-based editor to let you edit the captions if it's not 100% perfect, and then to take advantage of that information and create analytics on the frequency of terms in a video, or maybe you want to enable translation. So this is moving the reason for captioning beyond just meeting the minimum of creating the captions, now taking advantage of that effort. All of that experience over the last 20 years has now been integrated and available in a compliance system that IBM has. It's based on the experience we've had with our 40,000 developers, over 11,000 types of deliverables we're working with, and lots of different clients in many different industries. There's a checklist and guidance system as part of the overall compliance system. There's training modules so that everyone is trained across the organization based on their role. there's the tooling that we've talked about, and there's also now tracking. So you want to understand not just where your portfolio is in the enterprise, but also what's the compliance status of each item in that portfolio. And that way you can take advantage of the business priorities to help meet the needs of your end users. So this has really been a good talk to have with you today. I really appreciate your time. Let me say thank you and welcome you to come to our agentability.com website to look at our latest thinking, or perhaps follow us on Facebook or LinkedIn, or check some of the videos out on YouTube. Thank you. Ciao.